Catch up on all the live shows right here on africatechradio.com.
Welcome to Tony's Tech Side on Africa Tech Radio. This is a special episode because in this set of episodes, this series, we're looking at the different things or areas that are connected to our lives and how we live and the tech space and the kind of things in terms of trends that shaped these sectors and industries, from how we worked to AI to cybersecurity to logistics. Yes, logistics. And this episode is dedicated to the trends that shaped the logistics space on the continent in 2023. Yes, I have the CEO of TopShip here with me, Moses Enenwali. Okay, so Moses, I want to hear you say your name.
Moses Enenwali.
Okay, beautiful. So let's start with how your 2023 went down for you. Your personal thoughts about 2023. You could share this in in words, in phrases, in maybe a sentence, anyhow you want to describe 2023.
Yeah. So I think 2023 was definitely a year of growth. And this is growth across board and in terms of the way, especially in our industry, in terms of the way we operate, and also in terms of the size of the industry, but also in terms of learnings, right? So understanding better how to serve our industry and the roles to play as platforms that we are, right? But of course, growth of course also comes with growing pains. I think we definitely saw a lot of that this year as well. The pains that come with growth, we're not exempt from that, but definitely a year of growth. And so we're very grateful for the lessons and growth and learnings in 2023.
Okay, beautiful. Now, what would be your top picks of the things that, in terms of trends, things that shaped the world of logistics on the continent in 2023?
Yeah. So I think, of course, we can't talk about 2023 without talking about the macroeconomic shifts that took place in the year and how that affected supply chains and demand and all that. Of course, this macroeconomic sort of changes have an impact on purchasing power across the globe, and that tends to have an impact on supply chain, right? But one of the things that I thought was very interesting was we still saw a lot of growth in 2023, regardless of these challenges, regardless of the drop in purchasing power, especially here in Nigeria, and of course, the global macroeconomic challenges. We still saw a rise in international trade. We still saw a growth in international trade in 2023. So I thought that was very interesting. I think what that shows us is that even though there has been some macroeconomic challenges, there's still more international trade being done than ever before. And for us, that's a very positive signal going into the next year, is that this is something that's going to continue to grow. Not because there wouldn't be challenges, but because this is the new norm, right? The new normal is international trading and just like global connectedness. And so merchants in Nigeria are now very easily selling what they make to the USA, UK, Canada, and are shipping it very easily. And that's not slowing down, regardless of the challenges that the world global economy has faced. That's not slow. And so that's a shift that has taken place. And what the data shows us is that it's not going away anytime soon. So that's definitely one of the big trends that shaped 2023. The second one, of course, in my opinion, as a player in the industry, would be just a lot more collaboration across board, collaboration with tech platforms, collaboration between carriers and tech platforms and other trade platforms, but also collaborations between people that you would normally think of as competition. We play in a very big industry that's very critical, and so oftentimes you would think of a particular player as competition, but when you really try to scale, you see that, okay, this is someone that I can actually work with to meet needs. And so we saw a lot of that in 2023, especially from where we're sitting. And this has a lot to do with the massive growth that our industry experienced in the year 2023. So those two things.
Okay, really interesting ones there. Now, in terms of funding, how would you rate the sector in 2023? generally?
Yeah. So in terms of, investments, I think, of course, you can't take away the fact that the challenges that the global economy faced would have an impact on investments, right? And so that was definitely felt across board in 2023. But that being said, I actually think that it's a good thing, because at the end of the day, I think just it forces businesses to think really critically about their fundamentals.
Mm-hmm.
And to focus on pricing their products or services very, very, very properly, adequately, and not subsidizing what they sell just because there's capital available, right? And so that's actually a good thing. It's healthy in the long term. It's sort of like a bitter pill that helps. And so that's the way I see it, right? And maybe it's an overly optimistic way of looking at things, but I choose to see it that way because I'm definitely one of the people that had to take a very good look at our business and think of all the changes that we need to make to be healthier, because a lot of these changes have been made. And so yes, there was a slowdown in funding, mm-hmm. and again, as a direct result of the macroeconomic shifts, but that is the long view is that this is very healthy, and this will eventually help us build more resilient and sustainable businesses.
Now you're not the only person. So when I was talking to Onyeka Nwobo and Sylvester Keadade, Sylvester works with Ingressive, and Onyeka with SIT. They all also, when we looked at funding to tech startups generally, talked about how it's healthy, it's actually the way to go if we're going to really grow. And you're also mentioning it. Now, what do you think in terms of logistics startups closing shop, and how hiring, recruitment, and layoffs have happened in the logistics space in 2023?
So to be very honest with you, I think our industry has been one of the good ones in terms of the impact of this macroeconomic shifts, right? We haven't seen a lot of logistics businesses shut down in 2023. That's just a fact, relative to other sectors, right? And the reason why is because we play in a very essential industry that has a lot of transactions, right? So a lot of businesses, one of the things that they don't struggle with is seeing sales, especially in our industry. There's always someone willing to ship something. Exactly. And so I'm not one of those people that would say, it was a dooms year no, I don't think so. I think that a lot of logistics businesses survived in 2023, and that's a good thing. That's a good signal. That's a testament to the health of the industry as a whole, and to how viable and how essential it is, right? And so there were shutdowns across board with lots of other industries, a lot of other sectors, but our sector was actually did pretty well relative to the others. And so I think that that's a very good signal, number one. And of course, like I said, these things have sort of like a ripple effect on the way your business is run. So things like hiring and managing people, it's also, again, a derivative of what's happening in the macroeconomic scene. If there's a sort of slowdown with the way capital is being deployed or capital investments are being made, that of course informs the way you would hire and the kind of talent you can hire for, right? But again, the whole point of being a startup is that you're supposed to be resourceful, right? There's never been any. This startup is not a money printing scheme. It's supposed to be finding a smart way or cheaper way to do something, solve a big problem, and that's always been the ethos, the driving ethos behind startups. So startup founders have always meant to be missionaries, right? And so it's kind of shocking when everyone's complaining about times being hard. It's like, yes, you're supposed to be a missionary. Times are supposed to be hard, right? So it's finding resourceful ways to solve the problems. That's the whole point. And so for me, I don't think about it as, you can't get $10 million to blow on or to throw at a problem. No, you're supposed to find a creative way to solve that same problem without the $10 million. Because that's what makes you an extremely valuable business, is that you can solve what these really big conglomerates couldn't solve with $100 million. You could do it with $500,000. And so for me, that's what makes you valuable as a startup, right? That's the whole point, is the really resourceful, really smart people coming together to solve a problem better. And so, yes, you can look at it that way. I choose to look at it that way because I believe that that's true.
Now, talking about solving problems, one of the major things that the logistics sector is supposed to do is to help Africans better trade with Africans, cross-border intra-African trade relations. And the AFCFTA kind of like puts a lot of this responsibility on, the logistics and supply chain. How do you think we fared in terms of actually getting down to last mile cross-border intra-African trade? How did logistics sector play in that space in 2023?
Yeah. So I think definitely our best year yet in that regard, right? There's still a lot more to be done, but 2023 was our best year yet in terms of just the interconnectedness of the continent, in terms of trade. And again, platforms like ours are to take the credit, right? Because the problem has never really been a lack of assets or a lack of planes or buses or vans. The problem has always been the access to data and information to connect all those pieces of assets on the ground. And that's what platforms like ours do, right? And so with the introduction of platforms like TopShip that make it very easy for you to find shipping options and make a decision and buy shipping options, it's now a lot more easy. It's now easier than ever before to ship to an African country or to import from a fellow African country.
Can you give like one success example or story?
Yeah, right. So again, the one that I always sort of cite is, prior to now, it used to be a very major challenge to either import or export from South Africa. Okay. Right. And part of the reason why was that because there was a very sort of the perception was that there was a very hostile customs regime in South Africa that was very hostile towards either imports coming from Nigeria or exports leaving to Nigeria. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that we've done with that is we've created options, right? And so we realized that, look, a lot of the options that were available for shipping in and out of South Africa are restricted to a certain type of shipping option. And that shipping option obviously has a lot more scrutiny because of the nature of goods that are typically shipped with that option. So we created alternatives, right? And those alternatives are now profiled on TopShip, and now people can easily ship to that country and import, either perishables from that country without having to go through all those hurdles, right? So that's a big step forward in terms of just the trade between Nigeria and South Africa, right? And so for us, we see more of that continue to happen. Again, the scale at which this happens and the rate at which this gets implemented can definitely be improved upon. Mm-hmm. Because it's not moving fast enough, in my opinion, especially with AFTA. I think AFTA can be implemented, can start being executed on way quicker than it is. I think it's one thing to sign a document, another thing to implement on the ground. I think that there can be a lot more progress in terms of the speed of the implementation on the ground, sensitizing the customs officials and all that stuff. I think that can definitely move faster. But I think just in terms of interconnectedness of the continent, in terms of trade, this has been the best year yet, and that's saying something. So yeah.
Now, the regulators, the regulatory frameworks, and announcements. Sometimes some people would say, "Oh, it's not just about the announcements that you make." In terms of, "Oh, there's a framework that's changed. There's a new framework," but it's how you communicate it. The persons who are part of bringing about that framework, do you have the players in the space? Do they know about it? Are they getting prepared for it? How do you think we've heard? Logistics players, both the private and the public. By the public now, I mean, the regulators, the government. Because over time, Kenya, Nigeria, we've seen, over the years where one announcement literally cripples like a sector or the players in, a particular vertical. So what are your thoughts about how, this relationship worked in 2023?
Yeah. I definitely think that, again, it's something that there's always room for improvement in terms of the way these things can be done. But I think, yes, definitely better than ever before, right? And sometimes when you say something has been the best yet, it doesn't mean it's great. It just means that compared to the previous years, there's progress, right? And so that progress might be slow and it might be incremental, but it's definitely better than where we're coming from. And I think that as we continue to make progress towards getting better at these things, that they can compound. So that's definitely the way I see it.
Any high points this year or low points, like learning curves maybe in terms of regulator and private sector player?
Yeah, I think the one of the beautiful things that we saw this year was just the willingness on behalf of the regulators to actually help, right? And that's from our own interactions with them, especially here in Nigeria and another place where we play. We just need just a significant openness and willingness to actually help, and so and that's you put that in contrast with the general perception that regulators are very, hard-handed and always want to come down with a hammer, right? But now we're seeing that no, that's not the case. That they actually care about the ecosystem and they care about progress, and we really, 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 very, very encouraged by that. And we definitely look forward to more engagement with regulators going into 2024. We definitely saw just a very refreshing willingness to help from them this year. So I think that's definitely one of the high points.
So if you're going to describe the challenges that the logistics sector faced, what challenges comes to mind?
So I think definitely one of the big ones is inflation weren't exempt from just inflation across board. And so definitely making changes to your business to accommodate for all the sort of hikes that took place in 2023, and it happened more than once, right? And so you have at least 3 or 4 times over the course of the year, you have to go back and look at your unit economics and look at your business to say, are we charging fairly? What's our cost of goods sold? What are the costs of sales? And how is that increasing over the course of the year? Having to do that about 3 or 4 times a year was definitely a challenge, right? And going into 2024, that was something that a lot of people in space are going to be looking out for to say, hey, what do prices look like, right? So I think that's definitely a big one. I think another one is it's also sort of like it's a bit tricky, but I think just finding the right sort of collaborators to accommodate for growth that I think a lot of people experienced in 2023, because again, one of the things you learn very quickly is that you cannot do everything. Supply chain is extremely complex and inherently complex and vast, right? And so no matter how ambitious you are as a business, you realize very early that you can't do everything across the value chain. You can't solve every problem across the value chain, right? So finding the right collaborators to work with is definitely the second most important challenge that I think the logistics companies, platforms like ours especially, face in 2023.
Okay, that's good to know. What has managing TopShip, what has it look like? Managing, a brand like TopShip in the logistics space, being a CEO in the logistics space. What have you learned about the space this year?
Yeah, so I think first of all, managing TopShip, I think I definitely got lucky with the team that I have working with me at TopShip.
Okay.
They make the work a delight, right? And
Shout out to everyone. Shout out to everyone that works with Moses.
Yes, absolutely. They definitely make the work a delight, and so I'm grateful for them every single day. And in terms of what I've learned as sort of like as a businessman in this space in 2023, I think it's understanding how important pricing is. I think is the most important thing that I learned is, yes, we live in a price sensitive market, but don't be afraid to charge fairly for good value. If you're providing actual value for a particular service, you should be confident in the way you charge for that, because that's going to enable you to consistently provide that level of quality as a business. And so I learned that this year, definitely, in terms of just being confident enough to say, hey, this is the value that this service provides, and so as a result of that, these are the costs associated with it. I think that's number one. Number two is that it's very important to allow the user or the customer or the merchant make their decisions and not try and force decisions down on them. So one of the things we've done at TopShip to be able to enable this is giving our merchants options, right? And we've continued to emphasize this, that we're a platform and we provide you with options. That's one of our strong selling points, is that we provide you with the options that are necessary for you to make the decision. And I think I reinforced that learning again in 2023, is that yes, it's very important to provide the options and let the merchant make the decision. That's definitely a way a platform should work. And so for me, that's definitely one of my key learnings in 2023.
Beautiful. Now, how should the players in the space think of and take stock of 2023? I'm talking everyone who plays in the space on the continent. How should they take stock of 2023? How should they think about what happened in 2023?
Yeah, I think definitely number one I would say is count your blessings. Count your blessings. We are in a very essential industry, and what we do is important, right? And if you look at your numbers, you'd see that yes, what we do is truly important, because this was a difficult year for the global economy. But if you look at your numbers, you'll see that supply chain and international trade, international shipping, if you play in that space, is absolutely important and critical. And I think that's definitely number one, count your blessings. Number two is don't doubt the things you've learned, and especially the ones you've learned more than once or over time. Don't doubt those things. You should understand that you learned those lessons for a reason and you should stick to them. I think those two things is definitely the thing that I would say we should remember as we take stock. Count your blessings. It's not all doom and gloom. It's very easy to be in that whole cycle of, oh my God, this was such a difficult year. But it's very important to also take stock and sort of zoom out and count your blessings. And then number two is don't forget the lessons you've learned this year. Note them down, jot them down. Remember that you remind yourself of them, especially going into the next year. You might come on that road again, and you might have to make a decision. And so you shouldn't forget what you've learned prior.
Very interesting. Now, finally, in terms of tech being imputed in the logistics business, I'm talking blockchain, automation, Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, drones, all of these things. What role do you think they played in 2023?
Yeah, so I think definitely one of the big features in 2023 was just the AI coming to the center of the conversation, and how AI is used to make the world better and to just help in the scheme of things. And I think that definitely applies in our industry as well, with route planning and route selection for merchants. That's definitely something we're going to see a lot more of going into 2024 and beyond. And I think that came to the center of the conversation in 2023. And so yes, just like every other industry, we benefit from new technologies all the time. And this is definitely one of them. And I think that we're really excited to see how this plays out going into the future.
Thank you very much for taking time out to share your thoughts with me on this episode. I really appreciate it. I've been speaking to Moses Enenwali, the CEO of TopShip. TopShip is a logistics company on the continent of Africa, and this episode is dedicated to the trends that shaped the logistics space in 2023. And I hope that these insights that we have shared, that Moses has shared, would help us in our stock taking of 2023 if you're in the logistics space or anything related to logistics space, or if you're just looking for insights in the space. And thank you very much again, Moses, for the time.
Thank you very much. Yeah,
I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening, and don't forget to catch up on all the live shows right here on africatechradio.com.